Okay, let's dive right into this. Welcome to The Explainer, where today we are tackling what's probably one of the most misunderstood concepts in modern business: digital transformation. We hear constantly about the magic of the digital economy and business model innovation, right? But today we're looking at the cold, hard science of what it actually takes to get there. Because honestly, it turns out we've been looking at the whole thing entirely backward.
Let me ask you something. Is digital transformation really just about adding new tech? Think about it for a second. How many times have you seen a company shell out for a massive, expensive new software suite, roll it out with all this huge fanfare, and then literally nothing changes about how the business actually runs? We've kind of been conditioned to treat buying software as the exact same thing as transforming a business. It's like we treat it as basic math, where plus automatically equals better. But as you're going to see, that assumption is a massive trap.
And here is the real crux of the issue. The absolute myth is that this is an additive process, that you can just stack shiny new tools right on top of your existing workflows. But the reality, it is a subtraction-first process. Adding new tools usually just creates massive friction because organizations completely refuse to let go of their old routines. Honestly, it's exactly like trying to install a massive new operating system without clearing any space on your hard drive first. Your shiny new digital knowledge is basically useless if your legacy mental models are blocking it from actually running.
To really grasp the science of letting go, here's our roadmap for today. First, the digital addition myth. Second, the unlearning imperative. Third, sensing and seizing change. Fourth, navigating dysfunctional competition. And finally, designing for subtraction.
Let's start with Section 1, the digital addition myth, and why more isn't always better. The insights we're unpacking today don't just come out of thin air. They're drawn directly from a super rigorous two-wave survey tracking 207 Chinese manufacturing firms over a one-year period. These are traditional companies on the ground grappling with very real digitalization hurdles. And the researchers used heavy-duty causal data modeling to cut right through the hype and find out what actually drives innovation. So this is real-world, rubber-meets-the-road kind of data.
Now, what's particularly interesting on this breakdown is the ownership. Over 78% of the firms in this study are privately owned, with only about 16% being state-owned or controlled. So why does that matter? Well, it highlights that the vast majority of these are incredibly agile businesses right on the front lines. They don't have massive government safety nets to catch them if they mess up. They literally have to fight their own path dependence just to survive in a hyper-competitive digital economy.
Which brings us to Section 2, the unlearning imperative. Basically, uninstalling the legacy software.
So what exactly is organizational unlearning? It's not about corporate amnesia or just magically forgetting facts. It's the deliberate abandoning of misaligned routines and intentionally institutionalizing new ways of thinking. Breaking free from past habits, that path dependence, is an absolute prerequisite. You literally have to hit uninstall on those obsolete routines to create the behavioral space you need. Because if you don't clear that space out, the new digital logic just has nowhere to live.
And this right here is the core friction point of the whole process. Just acquiring new digital knowledge might not be enough if you're still locked into legacy routines. I mean, you can hire a whole army of data scientists, you can buy the most expensive cloud infrastructure on the planet, but if your management team is still making decisions based on old physical world logic instead of digital paradigms, you're going to hit a brick wall. The old routines will just suffocate the new knowledge.
Let's look at a really tangible example from the research: Volvo cars. To adapt to the digital age, Volvo realized they couldn't just staple a shiny digital team onto their old org chart. Instead, they deliberately abandoned their deeply ingrained, internally focused product routines. They subtracted that old way of working entirely, and in its place, they built a cross-functional connectivity hub. By tossing out those rigid, product-centric routines, they were able to shift to a dynamic, ecosystem-centric business model. Subtraction literally paved the way for the innovation.
So how does this translate into a roadmap we can actually use? Well, the study maps out a very clear three-step flow. Step 1 is organizational unlearning, getting rid of the old. That directly unlocks Step 2, which is the renewal of your dynamic capability. And it's only after you've built those new capabilities that you can reach Step 3, real digital business model innovation. The big takeaway here? You simply cannot skip Step 1.
All right, moving to Section 3, sensing and seizing change, and how we build those new capabilities.
Once a company finally sheds its old beliefs, this massive cognitive and behavioral shift happens. The researchers break these new dynamic capabilities into three crucial elements: sensing, seizing, and reconfiguring. You see,
Unlearning actually expands what a firm can perceive. That's the sensing part. It lets them spot opportunities they were totally blind to before. And then, because they aren't weighed down by rigid old routines, they can actually act on them. That's seizing and reconfiguring. Basically, unlearning rips the blinders off and hands you back the steering wheel.
Now for Section 4, Navigating Dysfunctional Competition, looking at the external helpers and hindrances.
Of course, all of this doesn't just happen in a vacuum. This framework brilliantly maps out the twin external forces every transitioning firm has to deal with: efficiency and legitimacy. Notice how these external environments either push down or pull up on a company's ability to turn that unlearning into actual capability. If you're operating in an emerging market with major regulatory imperfections, your ability to leverage unlearning is hugely sensitive to the world around you.
The study zeroes in on two opposing external forces. On one side, we've got dysfunctional competition. Think opportunistic imitation, weak IP laws, that sort of thing. This actively increases the risk of unlearning and absolutely erodes efficiency. It drives up your transaction costs, distracts management, and really limits your strategic horizon. But then, on the flip side, you have government financial support. This bolsters legitimacy and provides crucial Slack resources. This kind of external backup reduces resistance within the company and literally underwrites the painful cost of change. It compensates for the efficiency hit and supercharges your ability to turn unlearning into tangible capabilities.
Now, I know this structural model looks like a bunch of complex math, but it's really a literal map of organizational friction and momentum. And the data here proves conclusively that unlearning is the critical first domino. It drives digital innovation by renewing a firm's capacity to sense and seize opportunities, which is then moderated by those exact external pressures we just talked about.
Finally, Section 5, Designing for Subtraction and Your Next Steps.
So, if there's one thing you take away from this entire explainer, let it be this. To build new capabilities, you must design for subtraction first. Real digital transformation is almost never just an additive process. You absolutely have to engineer the removal of the old before you even try adding the new. Whether it's some clunky legacy approval process, a physical product-first mindset, or just completely outdated software, if it doesn't align with your digital future, it simply has to go.
Which brings us to the end, and I want to leave you with a direct challenge based on everything we've looked at today. Take a hard look at your own organization or even a company you follow closely. What obsolete routine will you subtract today? Where is that legacy software in your team's collective mindset just eating up valuable hard drive space? Find it, uninstall it, and make room for the future. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you next time as we keep breaking down the complexities of the business world.